Spoiler alert for all the quests listed on screen. Hi, it's me, Roosevelt. More like Whoosevelt though, am I right fellas? Because I've been MIA for the past 20 billion years. I meant to get this video out like a month ago. Listen, I've been super busy applying for jobs. It's like a nightmare. Like everyone is using AI for job apps and companies are using AI to evaluate the apps. So it ends up being like the least cool version of BattleBots. How do you make BattleBots not cool? But speaking of actually cool AI BattleBots, we got to meet Ineffa this patch. Wow, what a segue. So this Archon quest is a formal in-game introduction to Nodcry, and it delves a lot more into Natlan's early history, with AI dragon BattleBots. We've also just generally learned a lot about Teyvat's early history, and I imagine it could be confusing for some. Like, what happened?
What happened?
But I am here to give an easily digestible mini summary, because I, for one, have a single brain cell that has been fighting for its dear life. So let's start with that, and then I'll break down how Hoyoverse is just telling the same stories over and over in an attempt to foreshadow that the Abyss sibling isn't real. I'm kidding, that's clickbait. Kind of. I do have some crack speculation about the twin not being real, but we'll get to that. First, let's lay the groundwork. So the world first only had the Light Realm, with King Nibelung running a super high-tech, sexy dragon society, seeking to reach the stars and world beyond. In Natlan, the Pyro-Sovereign Zhukotal created 13 sovereign lords to rule over various regions of then Natlantia. Ahau is one of them. When I say created, I mean literally made like dragon AI. Zhukotal also created the Tonatia, the Sky Serpent ship, which was a part of a plan to make a space elevator and travel beyond the skies. Then Nibelung left and the Heavenly Principles dunked on the dragons, stealing everything. But in Natlan, the dragon survived in the underground city of Tallinn within the volcano. The Pyro Archon was dead during this time, frozen in lava. So for the most part, the AI dragon sovereigns ruled independently as they pleased. Kukulkan, or the Sage of the Stolen Flame, became regent. During this period, they tried to recreate the art of moon forging and reaching the worlds beyond. Because, side note, Nibelung made the moons. Anyway, these efforts were interrupted by the Great War of Vengeance, which completely messed up everything. After this whole debacle, most nations transitioned into the era of God Kings and the Archon War. But in Natlan, human civilization would basically collapse into small tribes, with the dragons taking back over. Meanwhile, Kukulkan is ejected by the Council of the Sovereigns due to his human experiments, and he goes on to teach humanity how to use phlogiston. From there, Xbalanque and his crew would then topple the reign of the dragons and defeat the Pyro-Sovereign, including most of the 13 Sovereign Lords. Except for Ahau, who suffers the more humiliating fate of constantly being put into timeout by Kniech. Get dunce-capped, nerd! I'm not going to get into the specifics about the 13 Sovereigns because there's a lot to it, but I want to talk about the two that were featured in Ineffa's quest. The 8th, the Priestess of Floral Candles and Skyborn Feathers, and the 11th, Mirror of the Dawning Morn. So let's start with the 8th. As it turns out, this dragon AI took in the human Lianka as a babby. Lianka would become one of the original Ancient Six Heroes with Xbalanque, and the first of the ancient name-bearer for Vuka, who would go on to establish the Flower Feather clan. Chaska would inherit this name and become one of the modern Six Heroes. Funny enough, similar to Lianka, she was raised by a Kukusaur. It's amazing how Hoyoverse just tells the same stories over and over. I'm kidding though, it's called Themes and Narratives. It's like poetry, it rhymes.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Anyway, she had a rather empathetic view of humanity and supported Lianka's choice to decide her own path. Despite her loyalty to Dragonkind, however, the other sovereigns deemed this as betrayal and executed her. The 11th Dragon Lord, the Mirror of the Morning Dawn, is an entirely different story. She hated humanity more than any of the other sovereigns, even the salt mine that is Ahau. But after the Pyro-Sovereign's defeat, she developed a side of her, a distinct personality, that broke from this hatred and simply sought a home. So at this point, she approached Lianka with a proposition. She was like, hey, I have this hostile personality that I'd like to get rid of, so could you help me with that? But she did the old switcheroo, pretending that she was the one longing for a home, and the disposable part being the hostile personality. Lianka agreed to the Morning Dawn's plan. But she totally saw through it, and she'd end up doing a reverse Uno and sealing the hostile personality in a temple, and send away the source core for the benevolent personality to Nod Cry. There, this core would be found by Aino and put into Ineffa. Important side note, prior to the core being sent to Nod Cry, the hostile 11th Dragon Lord put a curse on the benevolent personality. This would make Ineffa suffer anytime she felt any goodwill towards humanity. So, the 5.8 Archon quest is basically this original hostile persona of the 11th Sovereign pretending to be the 8th Sovereign. She does this in the hope of finally destroying the benevolent persona split from the 11th Sovereign and taking back her agency. Of course, through the power of friendship, the benevolent persona wins. Now Ineffa can return home to Nod Cry, where she has her found family and friends. To me, this brings up an interesting theme of what home means, which also ties in with this whole split personality thing. And my clickbait crack about the twins. Come play with me in this space. Ineffa has this dilemma of where home for her is. Her source core is from Natlan, but not the Natlan that exists today. She's a conglomeration of different pieces and styles of different nations. The core from Natlan, her Mondstadt style, Liyue designs of the codex, etc. At the end of the quest, it's basically said that Nod Cry is her home because of her connections and current identity. Hoyo is screaming this theme at us in this last update before Nod Cry. Take the summer event with Bennett. We learn Bennett is actually from Natlan and has direct ties to the marriage of Ari, as many people have long speculated. He is invited to stay in Natlan, but he declines, citing his role as an adventurer who will travel the world. Additionally, there's the Bakunawa quest, where our homeboy Enjo talks about looking for where his home is. I swear I will do a deep dive into Enjo one day. Oh, I'm gonna go deep into this man. Anyway, point is, same stories over and over.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
But this theme of home is very, very important to the traveler. In the Bakunawa quest, we are asked, where is home for the traveler? But they do not respond. Most people don't know the traveler is an alien, but the reluctance to answer that question is not just about being an extraterrestrial. Consider this. If you recall the We Will Be Reunited Archon quest, there's some very revealing dialogue. You can tell me all this later. Let's go home.
Home, yes, of course. Home is wherever we are together.
Home is wherever we are together. It's very on the nose with home is where the heart is, and this is alluded to through Ineffa as well. Her character story explicitly says home is where her source core is. Also, in the Archon quest, it's pointed out that home can mean many things and people can have many homes. Now, this dialogue in isolation is simply highlighting the connection between the twins. However, this wherever we are together feels extra heavy because it points to another main overarching theme of Genshin, one of dualism. Basically, dualism is the concept that a whole can be split into opposite yet complementary pieces. So, I think Genshin is really gonna hammer home the idea that the twins are just two parts of a whole. This next part will have some speculation, but hear me out. So, Ineffa is a split personality of the 11th Dragon AI Sovereign. This is the one longing for a home to belong to in contrast to the original persona and her hatred for humanity. Dualism. This theme has been prevalent since day one. It's not like we had multiple archons who had some sort of opposite, or rather complement, like Makoto and A, Nahida and Ruka Devada, and Focalors and Furina, each representing very different complements. A was Makoto's shadow and the beef to the brains. Nahida and Ruka were the same, just separated by time, with the young babby Nahida being the old wizened Ruka in a new samsara. And Focalors is the divinity to Furina's humanity. Same stories, just told a little differently.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
There's a really interesting contrast to Ineffa's story as well. A few years ago, we had the second Golden Apple Archipelago event, where Fischl had her own story arc centered on the duality of her persona. For those who don't know, Fischl's real name is Amy, and she's basically cosplaying as a character from some Mr. 9 books. I have many thoughts on these. That aside, this is an exploration into the complexity of Amy or Fischl. Fischl had to grapple with herself as the insecure, imaginative Amy, and the haughty Fischl who represented her fears, doubts, narcissism, etc. The conclusion of her story is an integration of the two dualities, creating balance between the two. Oz goes to great lengths to highlight that Amy is Fischl and Fischl is Amy, the positive and negative wrapped together. This makes her her complete, fully realized self. We recently had something similar, but more literal. In the 5.6 interlude, Paralogism, we go through this whole trial with Albedo and the crimes he definitely committed. I support homunculi rights and wrongs. In the end, we go through some alchemy to make Simulanka Durin a human. The innocent storybook Durin can replace the primal aggressive Durin we've heard about for years. Simulanka Durin explicitly says, "The pure parts of me can balance out the evil parts of him." And with a few other ingredients, bada bing bada boom, hey, I'm walking here, storybook Durin is given human form. The bottom line here is that it's an illustration, through literal alchemy, of creating a fully whole human. As a side note, Fischl and Durin have a lot in common here beyond the general theme. In psychoanalysis, there's a specific name for this. It's called individuation, and it's the integration of the shadow personality with the ego. It's a concept heavily explored by 20th century psychoanalyst Carl Jung. This topic lives rent-free in my brain because Jung had explicitly compared individuation to the process of alchemy. His justification was that everything we perceive is projection, and that alchemy as a proto-science gives insight into how our brains worked before actual science. So Jung proposed that alchemy is an analog to individuation. That is, the steps of alchemy are equivalent to the psychological steps to becoming a fully realized person. So, Fischl's and Durin's stories represent psychological and literal alchemy, respectively. Okay, let's get back on track. So I hope you can see the theme I'm getting at here. Ineffa's quest is a super interesting contrast to me because it flips the script. There is no reconciliation. The original 11th sovereign dies in the end, leaving only her benevolent half. However, she does reveal before her death that she too longed for a home. So perhaps reconciliation could have been possible if those feelings had outweighed the sheer hatred for humanity. Anyway, moving forward. This idea of dualism was rooted in Genshin since literally the beginning, and here's why I think it's so important, and surprise, it's the Traveler twins. Literally the main characters and the main plot. Yeah, super groundbreaking ideas here. Am I right, fellas? The twins. One has already journeyed, and we as the other are the journeying half. It's interesting because depending on who you choose, the story arc remains the same. But there are subtle differences in choices and expressions. For example, the way they posture or emote. Even in their character stories, one has a preference for summer and the other winter. Even their color schemes seem inverted, they're complementary. The dual archons also seem to reflect aspects of them. Like, take the siblings, A and Makoto, where one is in the limelight and the other isn't. With Focalor and Furina, divinity and humanity, or in the Traveler's terms, descender and not descender. And if you extrapolate a little bit, this has interesting implications for a comparison between Rukkhadevata and Nahida. You are me in the next samsara. So they are the same, but separated in time. The 5.7 Archon quest, A Space and Time for You, literally had an intersection of their respective journeys across time. I'm finally reaching the clickbait about why I don't think the sibling is real. I mean, they are absolutely real, but at the same time, they're incomplete. And consider this idea. If you look at these other examples of this theme of dualism, there originally was a split. Like how the 11th Sovereign split her personality, and Focalor split her qualities, and so on. So I wonder if they're also just split personas. As in, they used to be one person. I don't know how they would pull that off, but I think this is fun to think about. I'm just asking questions. Regardless, the endgame here is a reunion of the two, at least as a unit, the twins. The entire plot is driven by the Travelers yearning to reunite with their twin. And, as the game has told us many times, we will be reunited. But there is something else that keeps tickling my brain about the twins. This is the super crack portion of the video, and it goes back to alchemy. So we know the twins are aliens, and we're gonna find their spaceship in Nodcry, I guess. But Albedo in his story quest had a very suspicious line regarding Traveler's origins. He notes this weird magenta sediment residue from the experiments on the Traveler, and he says,
"Those born of Earth are bound by its imperfections, but those born of chalk are free of impurities. You and I are alike, both composed of a substance that has yet to be fully defined."
Albedo comparing himself to Traveler makes me think that perhaps the Traveler's origin has more of a twist to it than we think. And I think this twist is one involving alchemy. So let me jump back to that side note about Carl Jung. He saw the goal of individuation, this personal alchemy, as the archetype of the cosmic man, or primordial man. This is based off of Rebus, which in classical alchemy is the end product of the magnum opus. Rebus represents the reconciliation of spirit and matter, and also male and female qualities. So, cosmic or primordial human may be more accurate because of their androgynous nature, combining feminine and masculine elements, as they are completely individuated and whole. Now, primordial human may sound familiar. Albedo was created as part of Rhinedottir's Primordial Human Project, which was to create human life. I have an entire video on how I think it's not just human life, but actually creating a descender. There is a lot of explanation to that I won't get into, but consider this. In a note describing his aspiration to gain a descender's will, Renee of Narcissenkreuz also drops the term primordial human. So, putting this together, there seems to be an alchemical pathway to creating a descender. And looking at both classic and Jungian alchemy, you could even say this alchemical pathway might have to merge the feminine and masculine. And perhaps the twins are on that pathway. But wait a second, hold your horses there, partner. Traveler is already a descender. So let's huff some crazy talk for a moment. And I'm basically just thinking out loud to myself. Wow, my room has the nicest pillows on the walls and also the ceiling for some reason. So luxurious. Okay, I digress, sorry. Okay, so what if? What if this alchemical transformation had already happened? Like someone became a descender at some point. But then, like Focalor separating her divinity, or the 11th Sovereign separating her kind side, they split or regressed into a descender and non-descender pair of twins. Reason unknown, but I'd guess it'd probably be important. Here's the thing though, if this was one of the previous descenders, then we only have a few options to pick from at the moment, I think. You know what, f*** it, I'll just say it. Nibelung. I think the twins are Nibelung. No, please don't go. We're having fun here, okay? Like, just imagine. Nibelung became a descender through alchemy, but split his forms, perhaps in his defeat, and got the f*** out of Dodge. And taking on human form, I mean, we knew Neuvillette is the Hydro Sovereign reborn as human, but now we also have paralogism, where we literally see Albedo make the Dragon Durin human via alchemy. So the split is almost a reverse form of alchemical individuation. Okay, hear me out. I mean, consider some other big lore we've known. Traveler can wield all the elements, and they're the embodiment of light. And also, Nibelung created the 3 moons, so it makes sense that Traveler's best friend is a little moon goddess-coated pixie. Listen, I know this is half-baked and the cow is still mooing. And many people have pointed out a lot of these details before and have more comprehensive theories. I will say though, when I was trying to massage this into something coherent, I did find that Cataclysm on Hoyolab had previously suggested that the twins were Nibelung as well, via this alchemical pathway. Completely different justification and background, but I certainly feel less crazy pants seeing that. But listen, don't mind the details. Don't think too much about it. I'm trying to work off these themes and narratives they keep building, and this patch was all about home. After all, the twins are described as scions of a glorious lost kingdom. One perhaps ruled by the original dragon king, and, like Nibelung, their home was destroyed. But at the same time, home is where their kin is. Because like I said, it's just the same stories over and over, told a little bit differently.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
I couldn't think of a way to make this a standalone, but I feel like it fits in with the theme of identity and home and dualism and what it means to be human. So I'll just make a quick side note here. Hey, Sandrone's unit was in the quest, and they're all super convincing human-looking robots. Or some of them are, at least.
Are you real?
Well, if you can't tell, does it matter?
I guarantee we're going to have more robot characters in the future, and unlike Ineffa, they look and feel entirely human. They might not even know they're robots. They probably won't. No, I'm so for real right now, you guys. I'm entirely predicting some Blade Runner Westworld plots coming up. Imagine Genshin having themes of what it means to be human. Imagine Genshin having entire arcs of characters grappling with their identity. Imagine dragons. Also, this 5.8 quest provides more evidence that Alain Guillotine created Marionette, who looks like his sister Marianne-ette. But specifically, the Fatui unit for Marionette keep calling Traveler a variable. And who else so far has made a point to call Traveler a variable? Elaine's former bestie, Renee of the Narcissenkreuz Ordo. Traveler was the variable that Renee didn't consider when he calculated the world formula, which was basically a prediction of the end of the world. So, I'd venture to guess, Elaine picked up some language from Renee, and that's lasted for many centuries. Yeah, so sorry guys, I've been so absent. Like I said, I've had like a crazy couple of months. But thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and share with your friends, your mom, your therapist, your favorite disco servers, and also comment below with your own thoughts and theories. And any corrections, because I imagine I will need a lot. Again, single brain cell working overtime here. I really, really appreciate you guys. It brings me so much joy to see people say that they enjoy my videos and think I'm funny sometimes. I could use a little extra love right now, ooh woo. Okay, well, take care. And also, have you checked your smoke detector batteries? It's been a while, so you probably should. Okay, bye.